All right, so today I got my good buddy Brandon. I guess you could consider you more like a little brother. Man, I don't know how long we've known each other, probably a decade, but really came back into the picture around 2018, 2019. Since then, you've hit some good licks. Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I got you here today. You've impressed me with what you've took and ran with. So, for people that don't know you, introduce yourself. Tell us what you do.
My name's Brandon Mark, and real estate investor. And you can find me on Instagram at Brandon_actual.
Sweet. So, I hear the term real estate investor a lot. It seems like the new word for entrepreneur. So kind of explain to us how you invest in real estate. What's working for you? What's your niche in that?
Man, I just fix and flip. I don't rent out. I don't see value in that. But, everybody has their pie.
So take me back. How old are you? How old are you now? So whenever you take me back to your childhood, people kind of know. I mean, you're not very old. You're young. You're doing big things. So how old are you currently?
26, going on 27.
Boom. So take us back to your childhood. Where'd you grow up? Where you from?
Man, Cleary Heights, Florence, Mississippi. We have a lot of buddies out there, so it's a good time.
Yeah.
Still a good time.
Was you a good kid, bad kid?
No, man. It was kind of like a little safe haven there, kind of do what you want. But, years later, I actually was fortunate enough to go in and invest and build up property value out there. So people have to love me, I guess.
Sweet. I mean, you're not a high school dropout or anything, are you?
No. So did college at Jones Junior College, Ellisville, Mississippi. And
that's where we met.
Yeah, at the gyms.
Because you've always been ambitious. I guess the first way I met you is like I got a voicemail and one of my gym managers said, this guy wants to buy your truck. And I was like, well, it's not for sale. And then I think you might have called back or something again. And she was like, the same guy called. He's really interested in buying your truck.
And I don't even know if I was sitting in my dad's living room and I was calling you. So I wasn't living in Ellisville then. So I just randomly called out. It's crazy.
This is why you've gotten where you are.
I know, man. It's crazy.
So what do you think that is inside of you from calling me? And then I don't want to jump the gun on how you find properties. I think it's that same, skill set you have buried inside of your gift that you have to take action and do what most people wouldn't do. Because I would have never sold my truck, and I never thought about selling my truck. But the second phone call that was random, I'm like, well, yeah, I'll talk to him. You know,
it's thinking back, it's a thing that my dad I think always instilled in me. Like never stop talking. And if you know him, he talks so much. He never stops talking.
We get some grease.
I know, man. I mean, you just keep asking.
So I know the viewers can't see you that's listening to us or ones even watching, but like you're pretty tatted up. Like where did you start getting these tattoos? Tell me a little bit. Did you finish college or how did that go?
No, man. The first year at Ellisville when I turned 18, I got my spine tattoo and then just all over. Still not stopping. I want to do the whole chest and stomach piece next.
Right.
So
did you finish college? What was your route after college between where you are now?
So I went to college after graduation in 16. Only stayed for, I believe, 2 semesters. And then went off to the Navy, did SEAL training, and then came back, went back to college.
So where'd you do the SEAL training at?
So we went up to, you had to go to boot camp first, and then pre-buds. And then I did a dive physical there, and they actually found a medical condition I didn't know I had. And then booted me out. So I came back to Ellisville to be an engineer.
How was that? You don't talk much about SEAL training, but how was that? Like, was it terrible?
Nah, man.
Were people crying in their bunks, wishing they were back home? How was that?
There was a lot of people there that weren't supposed to be there. Don't know how they got there, but absolutely a lot of dudes there that are, man, awesome. Still friends with them today. Just being around those type of people. And their mindset, I mean, that's an early development for me, like mindset training and being around actual Navy SEALs that trained us.
Did you have any mindset training before you went there? Because to me, that would be a big...
None at all.
Hey, that's a big decision.
So, I mean, you're in the suck out there, and you just keep pushing. So, I mean, that's something that was instilled in me early on.
That's cool. So you got kicked out of that due to medical conditions, and then... I met you again when you came back to Jones, so I'm assuming that was after SEAL training.
Yeah, I think that was 2018. and, just asked a job, and we kind of went off from there, man.
Right. Yep, because you actually worked at the gym a little bit.
Yeah.
I forget about that.
I know.
Cool. So I remember vaguely you were helping me do some construction work in the back of Ellisville, and you were you were really questioning me a lot, and I didn't know what you were thinking. And then it was, I don't know. You explain that how that was for you, but I remember you working with me putting in some beams in our warehouse, and I just remember you asking a lot of questions. I was like, man, he's asking a lot of questions about what I'm doing. And
back then I had really no experience in the construction field. Only knowledge from, my stepfather who laid floors and my grandfather who actually flipped houses, but I was never interested in that at the time. And so I just kind of, questioned what we were doing, going through there. And a little part of me, kind of wondered, I wonder if this could be a career for me, because, I was pursuing engineering then. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of in the back of my mind there, but never thought I would be where I'm at today.
Right. So you were working for me and you moved back home to Florence, Cleary Heights. How long was it whenever you moved back home till you purchased your first property?
So it was within a month, but when I was still down in Ellisville, I got linked up with, shout out Michael McPhail, through you. Built that relationship through you.
Which is a banker.
Yeah, a banker at our local bank down here. And he actually gave me a shot. He didn't have to. I just kind of gave him a vision, and it wasn't to pursue flipping. It was, trying to save some money, not pay rent, buy my own house.
Right.
And
so your first thought of buying your first property was, hey, I'm going to not have to pay rent on my first property.
Right, and I had an understanding of gaining equity and all that good stuff, and not really throwing away rent money every month. But yeah, within the first month, I closed on that property and luckily had about $20,000 to my name, and completely gutted it. Had no idea what I was doing, but.
So did you have the 20 grand saved up, or did you borrow extra the first time
Actually, when I was going into freshman year of high school, I was hit by a truck on a bicycle, and
man.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, man. He was doing about 60 and smoked me from the rear. I didn't know it was coming, so that's probably why I'm alive today. I didn't break a single bone, but.
Where was this at?
Right there in Florence on one of the main roads.
Jesus, he was on a bicycle?
On a bicycle. I was doing everything, legal. I wasn't swerving in lanes or nothing. And he came up, man, hit me from the rear. I flew over the truck and woke up on the side of the road. So I couldn't walk for 2 days. And after that, it was good to go.
And you cashed out?
I cashed out. I had a payment of about $25,000.
I'm not trying to laugh at you for getting hit on a bike.
Man, it's a funny thing.
I didn't never know that, dude.
I had 2 buddies behind me on bikes too, and they saw the whole thing. They couldn't believe it.
Did y'all have cell phones then?
Yeah. I called my dad on the side of the road and freaked him out.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I guess it's funny. It's funny now.
Yeah, it is.
All right, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember we were working in the warehouse, putting in the beams like we talked about, and it seemed like you were looking at property then. Was that the first house? And I know I was, building a relationship with a banker, but it seemed like you were also looking at houses at that point.
Yeah, so...
and you were quizzing me on what I thought about them.
Yeah, back in the day, a few years back, HUD is what I was looking on, but now there's really no houses on HUD that you can really bid on since after COVID. So I don't know the delegation through that, but I was looking on HUD. There was a cheap little $45,000 house.
So what was HUD?
Housing Urban Development, I believe that's what it's called. Mm-hmm. But you can go on there and look at like pre-foreclosure, government-backed loan houses for sale. And I went through and saw that one, and then I started going through our neighborhood and just looking for vacant homes, no one living there. And came up on one. It was like Lakeview property. I mean, small, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and ended up closing on it, I believe, for $75,000 is what I got it for. Mm-hmm. So this was right before all the COVID prices hiked up. I mean, I bought it at March 2020, right when COVID was hitting.
That's wild.
So I believe right when we were getting back from that
we went mountain biking.
Trip,
that's right.
Next week I closed on that house.
That's crazy, dude. It seems like yesterday. And to think then you hadn't even closed on a house. And I mean, since then you've closed, I mean, you've done what, 20 houses?
Yeah, after this year I'll be over the 20 mark within 4 years.
And it didn't grow up doing construction.
Nope.
No real estate knowledge, just taking action.
Taking action, man. And I've, you know, had some growing pains for sure.
Right. Yeah, so let's talk about that. Like, what's some of the hardships of this?
So, I mean,
for everybody that thinks real estate's beautiful, like, what's some of the scary moments you've had?
It really is. It's time management and management of the finances. Going in, knowing your cost, knowing your soft cost, hard cost, what the property is going to entail. If I'm going to have to replace the subfloor, jack up the foundation, new roof. I mean, there's a million different things that could go wrong, but you don't need to stick on the things that could go wrong.
Right.
So
how many times have you ever went into a property and you think it's good, and then you get in there and foundation's bad or roof's terrible?
The early years, I was kind of just buying them blindly, didn't do my due diligence, and that's a big thing. If you have the means, get that pre-bought inspection for yourself, even if you're doing it for sale by owner. But I went into another like front house. I think it was my third house that I bought, and just kind of walked into it blindly. And it took me actually over a year to complete this project, and it really, really put stress on me, and just everything about daily life was horrible then.
So how long did it take you to get rid of that deal?
I mean, in all, from buying it and getting to the closing table, it was 18 months. But I mean,
did you still lose on it, or did you?
No, I didn't. I put a lot of money in it, and I was scratching through life. I mean, barely making it, and I ended up cashing out about $140,000 on it. So it really turned the tide and kind of taught me what I needed to.
But the whole time, that 18 months, you're burning your cash reserve.
Yeah, I mean, I was renting a place at the time, you know,
Right.
Funny enough. And my intentions were to actually live at this property, but I kind of saw the potential at the end of the tunnel to actually sell it. But it was a really cool house. But I'm glad I sold it. It kind of put me where I'm at today.
Cool. So like today, is the market terrible? How do you view that? Because you hear it's an election year.
I mean, you have market scares, I guess you could say. But
do you ever find them to be true, or?
Not really. I mean, I've been lucky enough. None of my properties have sat on the market over 60 days. In my market, I mean, different markets are different, obviously. But no, I mean, I've had trouble finding deals, but I mean, they're always out there. And I usually try to keep my houses under 200,000. You know, anywhere from 100,000 all the way up to 250, and that's a sweet spot for our market. You know, that's that first-time home buyer.
Right.
Your buying pool is so much bigger. Who you're advertising to.
Right. So tell me that. Like, I always hear people, or I think, you know, I got construction knowledge and all that, and I've always deep down knew I could probably be a killer flipper.
Oh yeah.
You know,
100%.
I got that swagger, and I know how to do it for cheap, and do it right. But I just never have. Gyms have been my niche, but in that, like, I always hear, I've even heard you say, like, that would be my thing, is if you go into like a neighborhood you don't know, for instance, and anybody listening to this, I would assume you would think the same way. It's okay, the house is $160,000, but it needs some updating. How do you know? And I hear people say, I search the comps, I do all these things. How do you do that to know, like, hey, if I do put $25,000 in it, I can still sell it for $240,000? How do you get those figures, and how do you go about doing that?
So I've always had really good realtors. I know people put a bad rap on realtors, but man, they know your market, your local realtors. Mm-hmm. And so I usually pull comps, and I always like to push the comps. Say it's $150 a square foot that's going for in that neighborhood. I always tell my realtors, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna do this and this to it. I mean, it's gonna be a brand new house, so we need to at least try to bump it up as much as we can. You know, say $150 a square foot, I'm doing $158 a square foot. And that's a little bit, you know, more money in my pocket. So it's always good to go in with a good realtor to search your area. And it takes them 15 minutes to do that.
So the realtors, I know, are they amazed at what you're doing in this market and all as far as flipping and?
Yeah, we have a lot of new builds in our market, but it's always fun to go in because the new builds are usually cookie cutter. And so I love to go in and put those extra fixtures in, a little bit more expensive, different colors, wallpaper, just things like that.
Because you're going to do the work anyway.
Exactly. Set myself apart from other flippers and as well as the new construction.
Right. So I want to go into that. Kind of walk me through how a deal works. So we've talked about, from a young age, you've went in and just took action.
Right.
I've been working out with you before, and you were on your way here, and you're like, dude, I passed this freaking trap house. Mm-hmm. And you're already somehow figuring out who owns it.
Exactly.
Like, that's the stuff that I'm a knowledgeable guy, but that kind of has blown my mind, and I don't want to seem like a dummy and ask you those questions, but now's the perfect time to do that. How are you, like, passing a just full-blown trap house, and you're thinking, these people would sell this, and this is in a good neighborhood, the comps are blah, blah, blah. Explain to what a comp, walk us through the whole thing, because people hear this stuff, and they don't want to ask the questions. So whenever you are driving to my house and you pass the trap house, what triggers you to say, hey, I want to buy that, and then how do you go about finding that property owner to even call them?
So I always try to locate the contact information even before I contact my realtor about comps. So every jurisdiction is different. We're blessed in Rankin County to have like property records that you can actually look at the deed if it's on file or go up to the courthouse. Everybody can do that. But also I have this software called Deal Machine, and you can literally, you'll be at the property, you can touch where the property is on your phone, and it'll shoot their tax address, usually a number that's associated with them. And I'll usually reach out, say, hey, I'll buy this house as is. And I've been cussed out a few times, but it's a part of the game.
Right.
And just go from there and tell them my little spiel. Hey, I buy it as is, I'll cover cost. You'll just be coming to the closing table collecting a check. So, it's pretty simple, but you got to go out there and do the work.
So do you have a percentage rate that you're successful when you do these? I guess you would call that cold calling.
Yeah. It's all about cold calling, what I do. And also I send out, in the beginning, I send out handwritten letters. It makes it feel more.
You told me that. My wife actually asked me about that last night. She said, how's the letters going? Because I know she's kind of like, she's interested in the same thing you're doing. Have the letters worked?
Yeah. You seem more, and I'm not trying to fool anybody out there. I am just a one-man show. But I like investing in my community. But the handwritten letters make it seem more personal, like I'm not some out-of-state, robot.
I think you just said a mouthful. Dude, a deal to me is like when they're happy and you're happy. Exactly. And people just think every deal is like, dude, I'm going to come in and screw somebody and take the table. But if you go in there saying, hey, you're probably never going to get offered any money for this place. I'm offering you a fair deal. I'll take it as is. I'm going to rent roll-offs, clean this thing out. I'm searching the comps as to what, dude, there's a lot of work in that and risk. And it's not like you're just going in and screwing people because you're taking their house. But
yeah, exactly. I go in and I always want them to win. I'm solving their problem. I'm solving the problem that they have a dilapidated house that they're not even living at. I'm giving them money. So
a lot of times people's not even living at these properties.
Exactly. I've actually the house that I'm living in now, people were living in, but it was family that sold it. So that's the only one that I've done.
Walk me through how you got that property, because that's wild. That's because I went with you to get whatever paper you got signed. Explain me how you found that house and all the steps you had to do to get this house, just so people understand what you're actually doing to get these properties.
Yeah, so the house that I found is in my hometown. And it was, if you could see a picture of it, it looked like it needed to be tore down. And it's in a good area, so I know it would bring some money if I bought it to resell. And so I just reached out to the guy, and texted him, got no response. Texted him, a few months after that, no response. And funny enough, we were here in the sauna, and I got a random call from a random number. And he's like, hey, you want to buy this property at so-and-so? I'm like, no way. And so got in it, went in. You know, it had a weird trust set up, so we had to go down to New Orleans and get that signed.
Because the owners had died.
Right. So there was like no living will. It was odd. I've never seen it before, but we went down there.
But you were willing to do that. Yeah. I was riding with you just to, you know,
make the deal happen.
Talk and hang out for the evening, but I had no idea what you were getting signed and why you were doing it.
Yeah, we went in and did a full remodel. The only thing I kept was trusses and the slab. Bought it for $90,000 and it just appraised for $380,000. So we're sitting on good equity there.
So how much did you have to invest in it to get it to where it's at now? Because you've done a good job with it.
I mean, it's a good bit of money. I know we have about $200,000 in equity there. So I mean, if I want to cash out anytime, I can.
Explain that. You hear people say, man, I cash out, refinance, cash out. Explain to me and everybody listening what you're saying when you say that, because I want to dumb this down to people that just scared to ask the questions. But like, you hear that's the thing in real estate, man. We come in, we add value, we cash out on the equity, and then rinse and repeat and just build up and build up and build up. Explain to me what you're doing when you, in third grade terms, whenever you cash out, refinance. What are you doing in that as a real estate investor?
So I think back in 2020 COVID times, the BRRRR method was a big thing.
Right.
But now that rates have gone up, it's really, you can't really cash out refinance like you used to, I feel like. I think it's more of a commercial thing now, that where you can make money since that high rent's coming in and still cover your loan. But you're essentially pulling out the equity to go invest in more property. So I believe it works better for the commercial market, in my opinion.
Right.
But like I said, I don't.
But you're not really holding property, so your equity is literally selling it and having profit.
And I can do like a 1031 exchange to kind of defer that, that equity payment. But we're going in and fix and flipping, so I'm not really taking advantage of the BRRRR method. But at the same time, I don't think that it's still a good plan in now time, 2024.
Right.
But that could change with the rates being dropped.
Right. So you go out, you pass a house you like, you call them, you get the information. Hopefully anybody that has questions at the end, we'll be able to give them a contact to contact you.
Reach out anytime.
I don't even remember these websites, but anyway, you look on your website, you get the contact, you call the people, they're willing to sell it. How do you go about getting money? Are you a cash cow? Do you take loans out? The interest rates are crazy right now. How are you doing all this with everybody that around you is being negative about interest rates?
Exactly.
But the thing is, date to rate, marry to pay off. I guess is what you should tell people, because in COVID, they're going out overpaying for property with a cheap interest rate. But now it's just idiocracy to me.
Yep.
But now they don't want to buy a property because they've come down to fair prices because interest rates are high. So what's your methodology on that, and how are you doing this?
So I was lucky enough to actually sell some property to my now banker. He's pretty high up at our local bank. I won't name him.
Which is a crazy story also.
Yeah.
The 51 acres.
Yeah, the 51 acres.
Just 2 seconds, explain how you got this deal.
Yeah.
What you had to do to get this property.
So I searched the deed and I searched names. There was no number anywhere, and I probably dug for a week.
Which is 51 acres backed up to your hometown neighborhood, Cleary Heights.
Cleary Heights. I'm still investing there. Bought this 51 acres, and you will not believe it. Roughly $3,200 an acre.
But the guy had died. In the house, in the dilapidated woods.
Yes. And so,
his kids lived in New York and L.A.
Yeah, New York and L.A.
You've reached out to the 2 kids, talked them into selling the property.
Yes, and I got them.
And they bid on it.
Yeah, I got them down to $3,200 an acre, and I ended up selling it to my now banker and his buddy for roughly $7,500 an acre.
Didn't even touch it. But it's because you reached out and called 2 kids that were in 2 total different cities that everybody else will say, hey, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and they came to that agreement on that price, and so I was blessed enough to actually be a part of it. Yeah, they had no emotional stake to it, But it was a blessing for sure.
That's wild.
But yeah, I actually sold that property to my now banker. He's high up at a local bank. And he goes in and he'll loan me this money on interest only, a year loan. And we'll show him our initial cost of what it's going to take to get it on market, and they'll do a subject to appraisal.
So what does subject to appraisal mean?
Like subject to renovating it, what it will bring in that market at that time.
So once it's done and finished, what it would be worth at that point.
Exactly.
And they loan you the money based on that.
They will loan me 85% of the subject to price. And so usually
that covers renovations, down payment, the property, because,
yes.
I mean, dude, you're going to have equity and profit.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So I'm literally going to the closing table, collecting my profit, and I'm out of pocket $0.
Except for the interest.
But if you think about it, I can pay the interest with that money that they loan me.
Right.
So I'm just paying back the loan. And so it's covering that monthly interest. So I'm essentially out of pocket $0 when I go to the closing table. I don't have to pay $1.
Wow. So how do you establish those relationships? Did you have to prove you could renovate these properties?
Right. It just takes time with and plugging in and finding that local bank is, I think, a big help. I don't think I could do this at Wells Fargo or Chase Bank.
Right. Which is bureaucratic banks.
Exactly.
People don't understand like the power of local banks where you can go out and build a relationship. Dude, I can text my bankers at the local bank and get stuff done. And I've dealt with the big brands and they are aggravating. And then it's not that you're a bad person, but, because I've had buddies that work for big brand banks. Right. I'm not going to name any, chains, but we have a relationship. Numbers make sense. I'm more than capable of doing these loans, but hey, we got to send it to underwriting in another state. Exactly. And these people don't know who you are and doesn't care. They're just looking at what they see on paper and they don't like it, or they push back with some crazy interest rate. And so then your buddies have to call you back and say, hey man, I can't do the deal. I know I promised you I could do it. Exactly. So I found that like my local banks, like, man, a lot of times you go in and talking to the owner. Yep. I mean, they're in there. So it's just so much more valuable, especially starting out. Now, I have outgrown banks.
Yep.
I've literally had banks say, dude, you're my biggest client and I can't loan any more money. You're over our cap rate. And which is cool.
Yeah.
But,
cool. My banker has, I call it sign-off power. So he's, the upper bank is really not asking him questions until we get over a certain number. Right. And so it's pretty much I walk in, hand him the contract. We got a subject to appraisal scheduled in the next week, and we're going to the closing table week 2, week 3.
All right, Brandon, so I want to go back right now because you say things that you think everybody understands, and even me, I don't understand. So walk me back through the process. I really want our listeners to understand, like, fix and flipping. I mean, do you assume most people even understand what fixing and flipping is?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm going in these properties, they're usually non-livable, non-habitable, and I'll go in, kind of gather my list in week 1, what I need to do. And
what are you looking for when you go to a property?
Man, I'm looking for no one living there.
But like if you go in for like a tenant improvement, what do you have a checklist? You're going by foundation, roof. What are the big check items that if they're good, hey, I can work with the rest of it?
Well, it's really now that I'm at a point where, I mean, I'll buy anything now, just depending on location. And so, starting out, I would definitely steer away from any foundation problems if you are looking for properties.
Is that cracks and mortar joints?
Not necessarily. You can fix a little bit of cracking, but also just the floor elevation is the main thing. But that is a big ticket item, as well as the roof. But there's a lot of shoddy roofers out there, but really the roof and the foundation, everything else is not that big of an issue.
All right, so roof, foundation. I know when you're going in a remodel, kitchen, bath, that's where all your money's dumped.
Yep.
Do you spend a lot of money there?
I do. I like to make my kitchens, really nice. That's where most of your time's going to be spent in a house, and also the bathrooms. I like to spend, brand name, all that good stuff. I mean, that really draws the buyer in. I feel like if you have a clean lines, it makes the buyer feel more welcome when they do walk in the house, and shows them that they can be there at the property and they want to buy it.
Right. So riding around, you find the property, you use your app, you locate the owner, call them, cold call them, see if they want to sell it. If they want to sell it, do you call the bank first? Do you go out and inspect the property to see if it's something you want to buy?
Yeah, so I'll meet up with the buyer. I'll meet up with the seller and basically walk through the property, kind of get a story about the house, like how long they lived there, if it's in family. It's a really good sign if it's been in the family for a while.
Sentimental value.
Right, and we'll go through, walk the property. I have, it's just wheels rolling in my head, like what I need to do. I can kind of...
Which is your gift. I don't know if you know that. Like the wheels rolling in your head, that's stuff you assume everybody knows what you're doing and thinking, but that's really why you're winning. And I want to get into that. So you like the property. Once you leave that with the original owner, would you call a real estate agent and say, hey, what's the comps on this?
Yeah.
Meaning, what could I sell it for if I fix this up? That way you know what you need to buy it at in order to put the improvements into it and sell the thing. Okay, the real estate investor gives you the comps. I'm running through this kind of quick for the listeners. Okay, you get the comps back. Hey, dude, I really only need to put 30 grand in here, and it comped out at 250. Hey, I could buy this thing for 80 grand. Okay, so then you're calling your banker, and you're going to ask for a subject to appraisal.
Yeah, so it's you'll get the subject to. I call it a subject to loan.
So do they have their own appraisals or the appraisers they send out? Or
Yeah, well, it's like a big pool. They can't have their dedicated appraisers. I think it's a conflict of interest.
Which I would like. I would want to be realistic and say, hey, I'm a worst case guy.
Yeah.
Hey, what's this selling for a worst case? Your sounds like you're a best case guy.
Yeah. I'm always looking at the glass, half full.
Right.
But yeah, we'll go in and you just... Over time, I believe you build this feeling about a property. You know it's
gut feeling.
Yeah, I mean...
That's the Holy Spirit, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm being serious. My banker goes crazy when I say, man, I just got a gut feeling. Because I'll have properties or houses or stuff like that. Mine's normally commercial properties. I'll look at, I may not win a deal there. And mine's more so a city.
Yep.
And dude, 10 years have passed by and all of a sudden, hey, there's an Office Depot available. Exactly. I don't have to think about it. And they're like, dude, you're moving pretty quick on this. I'm like, well, 10 years ago, I went through all the emotions, and guess what? My gut still feels great. Hey, the city's only grown. Like, this is still a home run for me. So that's a big thing, is gut feeling.
And I think you acquire that in any industry that you're in, just over
Well, that's going to be that desire that pushes you through the sleepless nights. Like, hey, I'm down $1,000 in my checking account. This house hasn't sold.
You don't know what.
How am I going to make tomorrow happen? That gut feeling, those desires are what's going to keep you pushing. Right.
And you can always know that light is at the end of the tunnel, even though if you're making $7,000 on the deal and it took, 5 months to complete, I mean, it's still a win.
Right.
I mean, it's always a learning experience for sure. And that's what's taught me too, those low profit flips that I've acquired, but it's always a learning experience. And now I'm at a point, my time management, it's on point. I schedule my subs when I need to schedule them, and I have projects moving so quickly.
Okay, so the banker, the house appraises right, subject to you get the loan.
Yep.
That's pretty much the end of the deal, or that's where the action starts.
That's where it starts.
I think that's where most people don't know how to get to that point.
Yep.
Even if they're a carpenter and they're good at renovating, they don't know this front end work that you've talked about doing. So, hey, I ride around, I got a locator, I find the owner, tour the property, they're willing to show it to me. I call a real estate investor, they give me the comps on it. Call my banker, get a subject to appraisal on it.
Yep.
They'll loan me the money for this much. The numbers work. Okay, the action begins. The property's mine. I got a dumpster ordered. Is that normally the first things, demoing?
Yeah, demoing, tearing out.
Demo, tear it out.
And that's why I sound like this today. I did one this past week and sucked in about a cup of fiberglass, it seems like.
Yeah.
But we'll go in, gut the property. And once everything's gutted, it usually takes about, I would say, 4 work days. Usually on most projects.
Are you nervous during this time that you're going to find rotted floors? Or
Not anymore, man. I mean, I got a good floor.
But if you get past demo and everything's what you thought it was, you're pretty smooth selling.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you line up your subs. I go ahead and order all my fixtures. I kind of get a scheme going, like what kind of colors I'm going to go with. And so I can go ahead and put that list together, order it, have it there on site, ready to go at the end. And I'll just have my subs lined up, and we'll just knock off, So, through HVAC, electrical, plumbing, foundation, roof. Foundation and roof is the first thing that happens at a property. Get it sealed in nice.
So your first step whenever you had just started, were you doing all the demolition? Were you doing all the remodel work? How did you do that? Because obviously you didn't have a ton of money. So how much of this was sweat equity that you were putting into these homes?
All of it. All of it.
And so now you've learned to hire subcontractors, get your time back. What are you doing while subcontractors are working? Are you out doing what you love? Is that looking for properties? What are you doing with your time mostly?
It's a passion, I believe. It's like the hunt, I call it. Just like going out there hunting for meat back in the Stone Age. I'm always hunting for that property, and I really enjoy that.
But if you look, man, that's your unique ability, and that's what's really moving the needle. Sure, you can get the properties appraised and find the comps on it and then remodel it and then sell it. That's a big process, but it all starts with finding that property.
Exactly.
And that's really what moves the needle.
Yeah, so I'm going through when subs are there. I'll help on the tear out. If you hear my voice, this is why. But when the subs go, I just, I check in daily if I can and see where they're at, see where progress is. If I got to put out fires, I put out fires. And then usually at the end, I'll do, the punch list stuff that usually a project manager does. And so that's my
white glove.
Yeah, white glove it.
That's cool. So you do that, you sell it. Or do you typically have a property already lined up? Do you have too many lined up? How does that normally fall?
One year I did eight projects in 1 year, and it really stretched me super, super thin on time and money. But it still was a learning curve. But
So one solution you've learned to solve is like whenever you were in college, you wasn't really sure what you wanted to do. You were in engineering.
I was in engineering school.
And you got into this wanting to flip houses.
Right.
What would have helped you the most whenever you were in college? You had no money. What could you have done then, at that point? Just say the market's terrible right now. How could somebody in college get into this?
Really, mentorship. I mean, you can find someone like me. If you bring me the property, I'm giving you a finder's fee, and that could easily, you bring me 5 properties. I mean, that's some serious money right there.
So we would call that kind of wholesaling.
Yeah.
They're going out, they're getting on your app, they're riding around, they're on the hunt. Exactly. Hey, Brandon, I found 5 properties I think you'd really be interested in. Exactly. They could even go as far as working with realtors saying, hey.
Yeah, I mean, you could, another way to look at that, you could actually find you a very good realtor in your location, a very high-performing realtor. They'll have a list of investors and all that stuff in their market. And so you could reach out to those investors and say, hey, how much would you pay me if I found you off-market deals? I mean, as me as an investor, I'm always looking for that off-market deal. So I would, if someone called me saying that, I would save their number, link up with them. And
so there's a niche to where you could go out, find the property, run the numbers, this would work. I don't want to be married to this property, I don't want to renovate it, but hey, I want to make 5, 10K on it, so what I'll do is wholesale it. I'll go in and get the property. If I'm said person, I'll go in and get the property, get it under contract. So if they sign a contract on this property, do they have to close on it, or can they come to you and say, hey, give me this, you can have this property under contract and tack on their 5, 10 grand for a wholesaler fee? How would that work?
It's called an assignment of contract. So it would be a clause in your contract of sale that you're able to sell that contract to another person. You're basically selling a piece of paper. And
typically you have 30 days to find somebody like yourself that's an investor to buy it.
And you can put any terms in that contract. It could be 30 to 120 days. And so if you find a house that's just sitting there empty, the owners are willing to let it sit for another 120 days while you go out there and try to wholesale it or try to, make a wholesaling fee off from an investor.
So what happens if they don't find an investor on this property they sign a contract on?
So usually you would have to relinquish that earnest money, and you can negotiate any price on earnest money. It could be $50, it could be $500.
Right.
But it's a part of the game.
So if you're a college kid and you want to get in a real estate game, you feel like you love the hunt as well, but you have no money. You don't even have a relationship at a bank. There is an answer, and that's wholesaling. So they could get in, get on the apps, get on the websites, go to the courthouse, ride around, find these properties. They don't necessarily have to buy them. They could get them under contract, put $100 down earnest money, saying in 30 days I'm going to give you X amount of money. Come to you and say, hey, I got this for $100,000, but I'll take 120 for it because, dude, it comps out at 300.
Exactly.
And somebody like you would buy it, even though they're making 20 grand to do nothing. They found the property.
The money is just sitting there. It's
Right.
sitting there for anyone to take.
And if they wanted to become you, hey, they do 2, 3, 4 of these, and all of a sudden they got $100,000 liquid cash in the bank.
Exactly.
They could go out and just start doing some serious flips and become an investor.
Exactly.
That's really cool, man.
It is.
So would you be willing to help people like that in your local area, or anybody that may not even be local, how to take the steps to find somebody like yourself?
You can find me on Instagram, Brandon_actual. My email's on there. You can reach out anytime. If the house works, the comps come back, the market's good, I'll buy it.
Sweet. Well, thank y'all for listening. You heard it. I want to get you guys information that you can take action on. Brandon's willing to help. So, hey.
Contact me.
Yep. If you're somebody willing to get into real estate, you have even no money, there's a way for you to get into this, and there's a solution for it. So that's what we want to do, solve problems. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for listening. I'm glad you came and visited me, man.
Man, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, dude. Till next time.